Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another brief video. This is just an update for everybody on the channel because I have two big updates to give everybody about the case of my grandfather. The first thing is, first I want to just quickly shout out my Twitter page. I know it's called X, but I come from a time where it's called Twitter, okay? My Twitter page, at Stefan Suto, and you can see here that my pinned tweet is, after 4 years of crushing silence, gaslighting, and state-sanctioned cover-up, the truth has finally come out. There is no hiding it anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, that is because finally, after 4 years, and after probably what's been like the last 2.5 years of trying to get some attention on this story, there has been a news media report about my grandfather's case. Now, I should probably clarify by stating that we did have, there was Mike Adams from Natural News. He did do a story covering the part that happened in Tennessee in this case with Carrie Madej. Because to those who are familiar, this case began in Tennessee. That is where my grandfather was injected with 21 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide and nebulized with 2 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide by Dr. Carrie Madej before my grandfather came into the care of Dr. James Thorp and Dr. Deborah Viglione in the state of Florida. Please watch my previous video because that is where I show all the evidence of all of this. Me and my mother finally got the opportunity to sit down with an incredible journalist, Mackenzie Laporte, from WFLV8, their station in Tampa. She is the reporter who mainly focuses on issues at the Florida Capitol. Me and my mother went to Tallahassee and we sat down for an interview in the Florida State Capitol. I might show a little bit of the video version of this story where we actually are on camera. It's going to be linked in the description, of course, but I want to focus just on the written version for now, primarily. This story does come at it from the angle of Florida's free kill law, which, by the way, I have a video on that coming soon. It's in the works, but I had to take time instead to quickly make this video. But for those who are unfamiliar, basically Florida's free kill law is the reason why we could not sue Dr. James Thorpe and Dr. Deborah Viglione. It is the only state in the United States of America that has this ridiculous provision in the law, which, I mean, it's in front of you here. Basically, it is impossible to file a lawsuit against physicians if the victim who dies is over the age of 25, unmarried or widowed, and does not have legal dependents under the age of 25. The law does specifically bar something called non-economic damages. However, it's a little bit deceiving to say that, oh, it's only barring this specific set of damages. In reality, this basically makes it impossible to file a lawsuit, and I'm going to talk about that more in a future video. And especially how there's this bizarre notion that not everybody, but a few people seem to have, that somehow filing a lawsuit is just about being greedy and getting money. Ladies and gentlemen, my family would give up every single dollar we own if it meant getting my grandfather back. The entire reason of filing a civil lawsuit is to get justice, because in a hyper-capitalistic society as America, and Americans know this as a society, we have agreed that one of the ways you can punish people is through monetary means and through the civil justice system, through suing them. And that can oftentimes be crucial, and in these types of cases, it is absolutely crucial when the criminal justice system or administrative pathways just simply cannot address the issue, or in my grandfather's case, are deliberately covering up the issue. A civil lawsuit gives the opportunity to have depositions, to have that valuable discovery process, which in many cases, and there are real-world examples of this, actually can help lead can basically assist in a criminal investigation. I digress. The story does briefly mention what Carrie Madej did and how we were able to file a lawsuit against her and we won by default judgment. That full case is available at justiceforstefansuto.org. It does mention the $1.3 million judgment in our favor. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to quickly state that that judgment was handed down May 2025. It is June 2026. We still have not seen a dime of that money. Carrie Madej continues to evade civil justice to this day. That could be another video in and of itself. She's basically just going state to state, trying to hide having an address and things like that, because she knows that she's guilty. She knows that she did wrong, and she is a narcissistic psychopath who, quite frankly, still hasn't properly paid for what she's done to my grandfather. And then the thing I love about this article is that it names Dr. James Thorp and Dr. Deborah Viglione. These three physicians killed my grandfather by poisoning him to death with hydrogen peroxide and ozone saline and direct ozone gas as well. That's what happened to him in Florida. Dr. Thorp performed a non-cross-matched blood transfusion using his own blood that he bled himself into an IV bag. And he gave that blood to my grandfather, ordered it be transfused into him. Another thing that I love about this story is that Mackenzie Laporte, she let me and my mother, she just let us speak. She let us be heard, and she just conveyed to the audience and to the reader here what is it that we have to say, and that is that all of these treatments were done. I want to say so-called treatments, because if you ask me to analyze what happened, I would tell you that this is far beyond medical malpractice, and this was our entire family getting defrauded, while what these physicians did was under the guise of medical care, when I think it's more sinister than that. But that's what I think. But all of this happened with zero informed consent whatsoever. It talks about my grandfather's autopsy report, which is also public. You can go read it. justiceforstefansuto.org. Dr. Schultz ruled my grandfather's death a homicide, the cause of death being hemolytic anemia as a direct result of what was given to him by Drs. Madej, Thorp, and Viglione. And it also talks about my grandfather's forged death certificates and how state agencies, prosecutors, and law enforcement are doing absolutely nothing still to this day about a very clear felony violation of Florida law. I have no idea why they're doing nothing. Well, I have an idea as to why the district medical examiner, Diana Oleski, is covering all this up and tried to protect my grandfather's fraudulent death certificate knowingly in court. That is exactly what she did, by the way. As for the rest of them, though, I mean, I guess it's just xenophobia? I don't know. My grandfather, he was legally in America. He was a green card holder, a legal permanent resident. But I guess it's because he's an ethnic Hungarian? I mean, I don't know. What I can say for sure is that the Florida Panhandle area is nothing but a good old boys club, because one of the struggles that our family has had is getting attention on this story. It has taken a journalist out of Tampa, right, somewhere far away from that area, to actually cover this story and cover it accurately as well, because the Florida Panhandle, there are two media publications in that area. You have the Pensacola News Journal and WEARS Where's TV. I'm going to talk about this in a future video. There's so much to cover, but basically these two media outlets have just refused to cover my grandfather's case, despite the evidence and despite the fact that this can be talked about, as demonstrated by this news story. And I'll definitely get into how that went, because we actually, all the way back in 2024, we had an interview over the course of 2 days with a journalist from the Pensacola News Journal that never got published. And the reason is it's quite interesting. And as for the other station, Where's TV, the journalist that we spoke to was very kind, very, very kind. My mother spoke to her, actually, and everything looked like it was finally going to come out. But the journalists themselves else told us that higher ups were blocking the story and were not elaborating on why. I have some theories as to why, and I'll present. It's for another video. You guys are all going to want to see what I have to say about that. Dr. Mahaffey, a friend of the family's, she was interviewed as well. She did just an absolutely amazing interview. Just as a physician, she talked about how she is so horrified by this stupid free kill law and how all these talking points from these lobbyists, these healthcare lobbyists, that it would drive doctors out of the state of Florida, how absolutely nonsensical that is. And she says that as she is a physician herself. And then, of course, the Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, who vetoed, by the way, because Florida's free kill law last year in 2025 was on its way out. 93% of the Florida legislature voted to essentially repeal this law, and a clean repeal at that. And it was Governor Ron DeSantis who vetoed that bill. He sort of came into popularity for being this governor who rejected the big healthcare for what they were doing during COVID, and many people supported Governor DeSantis for that reason. However, when people take a look at the sort of smaller issues, I don't want to say this is a smaller issue. I think it should be a national issue, quite frankly, because it doesn't matter whether or not you're in the state of Florida. If you are just on Floridian soil and something happens to you or a loved one, and a hospital or a doctor kills that loved one of yours, and they fall under this category, they fall under Florida's free kill law. There is no exception that says, well, I'm a citizen of Arkansas or New York or California, so therefore it doesn't apply to me. No, it doesn't matter. Governor DeSantis is nothing but a puppet for big healthcare, and it's evident by his of his veto of the bill that would have repealed this barbaric law. And he listens to hospital CEOs and wealthy healthcare insurance company lobbyists. That is effectively who owns Florida's current governor right now. And the story links my family's website, justiceforstefansuto.org, where you can read more about the case. You can go here and read my grandfather's autopsy report, the entire court case that happened against Carrie Madej. You can read my grandfather's, this is a secondary forensic review that was done of his case by another forensic pathologist, which has come to the exact same conclusion, and also shames the Florida District 1 medical examiner, Deanna Oleski, for doing absolutely nothing about this case. And that leads me to my next point here. This is a little excerpt, and this will be linked in the description below, of the news report, the video version here.
They also challenge what they say was a forged death certificate.
So we find out the death certificate is fraudulent. We tell all the relevant authorities, tell everybody. We notified the district medical examiner, Deanna Oleski. We told her office.
That is true. We told the Florida District 1 medical examiner, Deanna Oleski, that's her name, you can look her up, we told her office that my grandfather's death certificate is forged. It's a fraud, basically. And this leads me to the next part of this video here that I'm going to close on. Before my family got the private autopsy that was done by Dr. Schultz, our family tried to go about this by telling the state of Florida what happened. And instead, they decided to do absolutely nothing. The person who would be in charge of exhuming and performing an autopsy on my grandfather would be the medical examiner, Deanna Oleski. Her office at that time declined to do anything about this case whatsoever, despite all the evidence. After my family got the private forensic autopsy by Dr. Schultz, and it was revealed that my grandfather's cause of death was hemolytic anemia from the peroxide, the ozone, the contributing factors being the non-cross-match blood transfusion, the manner of death being homicide, Dr. Oleski's office also did absolutely nothing. She did not care whatsoever. She would not return any phone calls that Dr. Schultz made to her office. That was something he let us know. And then, of course, when we told Dr. Oleski that my grandfather's death certificate was fraudulent, she was notified not just by our family, she was notified by Dr. Scott Hoff, the person who was listed on my grandfather's death certificate as being the certifier. And, of course, he came out under oath saying he never signed the thing. He let her know, her office know. And I also believe that the Florida Department of Health Bureau of Vital Statistics, I know that they let her know that this death certificate was fraudulent, and she still did not give a single flying. I think it is just absolutely outrageous that somebody who calls themselves a district medical examiner doesn't care about a fraudulent death certificate, doesn't care to investigate a highly suspicious death, doesn't care to investigate the death even when there is findings that it's a homicide. I think that it goes beyond incompetence. And then, of course, that gets confirmed when our family filed a petition to change my grandfather's death certificate so that the cause and manner of death could match what was found by the forensic autopsy done by Dr. Schultz. Dr. Oleski intervened in the case. So she did not care at all for like 2 years, did not care whatsoever about my grandfather's case, but she suddenly decided to take an interest when it came to actually putting the truth on my grandfather's death certificate. And Dr. Oleski intervened to have the case dismissed. Diana Oleski, knowing that the death certificate is fraudulent, wanted to keep my grandfather's fraudulent death certificate on state records in the state of Florida. This is corruption. And thankfully, the judge saw through that. I bring good news that my family's petition to change my grandfather's death certificate was successful. And it wasn't just successful, it was successful on summary judgment. For those who don't know, it basically means that the facts were so clear, this case was so cut and dry, very obvious who has the truth in this matter, that it was just basically granted as soon as the judge just looked through all the facts of the case. Dr. Oleski's position was so weak that it lost on summary judgment, ladies and gentlemen. The main defendant, or respondent, I should say, in this petition was the Florida Department of Health. However, their response was basically to agree, basically. They basically just said they will do whatever the court tells them to do, and that they have no objection whatsoever to a change of my grandfather's death certificate, so as long as it complies with their administrative rules. And you can see right here, the judge was Judge Stephen Warwick. I might upload a hearing that took place in this case that's interesting, that shows Dr. Oleski's attorneys basically with the judge just sort of going around like a fart in the water on the point of, on basically some of the assertions that she made in her own legal filings that were flat out false. It's pretty entertaining to watch. Diana Oleski is nothing but a fraud. My next video, I don't want to make promises because I've said in previous videos, my next video might be about this, it might be about that. So I'm not going to say that anymore, but I do want to say that a future video will go more in depth on that case and on Dr. Oleski's actions, because it's there's more surprising things to it that I think people will want to know. And of course, to me, I think it just shows that the biggest fear that everybody has who is trying to cover my grandfather's case up, to cover his homicide up, and that the biggest fear that these doctors have, and that everybody who's trying to cover it up, the biggest fear that they have is our case getting into a courtroom. Because they know that when it gets into a courtroom, that the facts are very clear, that the truth is going to come out. My family intends to continue telling the truth and putting it out there. Please subscribe to my channel and please follow me here on Twitter. That's the best place to get updates about this case. And I'm going to try and keep the website up to date. That's it for this video, really. More coming in the future, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stefan Suto. Thank you for watching.